Hey guys, today on the BodCast, I am talking with Mike Kurkowski from The Strength Connection. Mike is a fantastic guy. I've actually been on his podcast a few times, him and I just really hit it off. And today we're actually talking about the dance of spirit, mind, and body when it comes to being strong. Super fun conversation with lots of just little nuggets I think that will be useful for you along the way. But before we get to the show, and now, a word from our sponsors. Are you really upset because Michelangelo died like 700 or 800 years ago and you wish that you had a body that looked like it was carved out of granite? Well, the wish is over, my friends. You can have a body chiseled from hammer and stone, just as if Michelangelo did it himself, only you're gonna do it with the Build Your Body program. So if you go to osionline.com and click on Build Your Body, you too can have the body of Michelangelo or Hercules or any sculpture carved out of granite that you find aesthetically pleasing. All you need is a place to stand and 2 dumbbells. And if you have a place to stand and 2 dumbbells, it is essentially like having your own hammer and chisel for your body. You won't be disappointed. The Build Your Body program is a fantastic program that is designed to sculpt your body, to develop the body that you want to have in a muscularly, aesthetically pleasing way. That is the Build Your Body program, available on osionline.com. The link will be in the notes of the show. And now, back to the show. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to the Original Strength Podcast. Pull up a chair and buckle up. It's the Original Strength Podcast. Michael Kurkowski, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So listen, the reason I wanted you on the show is because I just think we resonate well together. There's just something about you I dig, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So I thought I'd have you on the show and try to pick your brain about it.
Awesome. Let's dive into it.
So my first question is
likewise. So
do your friends call you Michael or do they call you Mike?
Growing up, I was always Mike with friends, but family was always Michael. So now it's usually I just kind of go by Michael, just because it seems like it just resonated a little bit more. But I respond pretty much both ways if I'm out in a crowd and somebody sees me. So
no, I'm asking because I want so bad to be your friend. And if your friends call you Mike, I wanted to call you Mike. But if they call you Mike, I'll call you Michael.
I appreciate it.
But I totally get it. When I was like all the people I grew up with, I'm Timmy.
Okay.
And it is so funny. Like when somebody calls out Timmy, I just know I grew up with them, or this from when I was a kid, right? Or they love me, or they're being jerks.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. Growing up with Kurkowski, a lot of like in sports, I was Kirk. So people just went to that road for a while, and then kind of just it was always Mike. Usually, most people Michael. Everybody just assumes it's Mike, so you just kind of like roll with that.
Right.
I kind of go by both of them. I introduce new people now, usually as Michael, though. So that is an answer, I guess, to the question.
Right on. Well, I scoured your website, and I never found a trace of Mike for anything. So
okay.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think that actually did start like maybe a year and a half ago when I started my own business, and was just almost like in that identity of like, who am I? Like I went through a lot of different changes, been doing this, business for a while, but I'm like, all right, now I'm on my own. I want to like, what is it I want to do? And it kind of started with looking within. I'm like, who am I? And what always seemed to resonate out with that was Michael. And I just like, all right, I'm just going to kind of put everything in there as Michael, because it's almost like contrarian, because so many people go by Mike. I'm like, no, I'm going to go back to Michael.
Right on. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, the who am I thing. So how would you describe yourself? I don't want to call you a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe yourself and what you do?
It's a great question. My good friend Tyler starts a podcast always asking that question. And when I was on his, I said, I have no idea, because it changes every day. By trade, I've been a personal trainer for a long time, been a strength coach, been a kettlebell enthusiast, been a mindset practitioner, been a life mastery coach. So kind of all those different things from there. I guess how I would honestly describe myself as just a curious person who loves strength and thinks that strength has a greater purpose. And my goal and my mission each day is to try and empower myself first, and then empower others by talking about strength and just staying in really the positive, mindset of that role.
Okay. So speaking of strength, on your website, Breakthrough Secrets. I want to ask you, you say that you help people build strength in body, mind, and spirit together. What does that mean?
It's a great question. So yeah, Breakthrough Secrets started from me and my former partner, Chris Abbott, who's a great friend of mine. I worked with him at his studio for a long time, and then we built a online business together, and then just decided to go some different ways in life. And so I kept Breakthrough Secrets and then started the podcast, The Strength Connection, because I think when we talk about strength, everybody can have a little bit different, I guess, description to it based on their personal experience. A lot of times we think of it as the physical, increasing muscle mass, lifting heavy weight off the ground. And I think there's very much merit to that. But everybody wants a stronger mindset. When we talk about spirituality, that's a big word as well. How I kind of bring that down, I think universally that we can all agree with, is it's something bigger than ourselves that we're living for. And I think when you are really living fulfilled and you are really embodying everything that we want to be, we want to be physically strong. It impacts so many things, but we want to be mentally strong in the things, the challenges that come up, and spiritually strong. I think really when we get tested in life, those are the things that we go to. It's like I've met very, religious people and people who are so far away from that, that, it's not something that's in their mind. However, when they're really tested in life, or on the other side, when things are really great in life, that's usually when we can connect even deeper. I think the veil opens up a little bit more for us. So how I work with people and what I wanted to work with specifically my clients is not just let's set up a program and build your physical strength and lose weight and change your body, but also what's going on upstairs in your mind. Like what's the bigger picture in life? What's the grand life, that's going on that we want to pursue to. So that's why I don't like to separate body, mind, and spirit. I think it's kind of like juggling. Like we want all the balls up in the air. And if we learn how to juggle, then we can keep them all up in the air in a really harmonious way. And if we do that, then whatever's happening in life, then we always have a way of building our strength in those, different ways.
No, right. And this, like everybody knows this once they know it, but life's just easier when you're strong.
Yeah.
Or like, strength doesn't necessarily make things harder.
There's no downside. Yeah.
Right. It just allows you to be able to do things easier, or to overcome things better.
100.
But if your spirit's broken, life is really hard.
Yeah.
And it's way too heavy to lift.
Yeah. And I think if you just focus on the physical side of strength, that's why I think so many people struggle with, sustaining, or maintaining strength. We've heard that so many times with clients as personal trainers. Oh, I want to get to this level and then I just want to maintain. Well, maintenance really is about continuous growth still afterwards. There's going to be new goals going forward. And what I found from a lot of personal experience, from a lot of trial and error working with people, is if you don't go into the mental side or the spiritual side, then you're building a foundation on quicksand. Like, for a while, maybe you can tread water and you can stay afloat, but eventually it's going to get down there where I think a spiritual connection, really a, strength and mindset, that's something that's going to harden that foundation. And you're going to be able to build on top of that.
That's pretty deep. Reminds me of a parable, but
yeah.
I'll move on. So also on your website, when you're helping people build their strength, you do it through creating practices that matter to the ones that serve them. Like, what does that mean? Like you help people build strength, but really you're trying to do it very individualistic, it seems. Like there's not a one size fits all approach for you.
Right. Yeah, I think there's some really great modalities of building strength out there. I came from, how I got into the world of personal training and fitness on a career aspect I was introduced to functional movement with Gray Cook, and then learned from Brett Jones and kind of went the kettlebell route from there, and then worked with Dan John, met guys like you with Original Strength. Like there's so many good programs out there to work with, but it's, the program, I think, is only as good as how the client can apply it into their life. And everybody has a lot of stuff going on in their life now. So kind of figuring out how to adjust practices the best way that it fits into the client's life, so it nudges them forward and challenges them in a way that is suitable for them, but also how to, adjust it when schedules go awry, when things go crazy. So I think having a blanket-based program, I think, will get a lot of people some success. But again, I work with people who I want to look at all different aspects of it. Like, I don't want to just look at the physical side. Like, that's great. There's a million programs out there. But if we're going to work together individually, we're going to talk about the mindset. What are the self-limiting beliefs that have, kept you from getting this goal? Like, how long have you been struggling to this? Why have you been struggling to this? What's life about? What's the bigger side of this, the spiritual side? So I think when you start getting into that, you're a very spiritual guy. Like, it's a very personal practice that you do, a relationship with God, a relationship with the universe. And if we don't go individual on that, then I think there's opportunities that we could miss from connecting. And when I think somebody knows that they can individualize their practice to their life and know how to adjust it, then it's not just the coach's idea that they're implementing on a person, it's also the client's and the individual's idea. And I think we all know that we are much more inclined to follow our own ideas that we know that they work, as much as, somebody else telling us what to do. I think that can work for a period of time, but eventually you're going to get to a point where you're not just blindly following somebody's advice anymore. That means you're living somebody else's ideals.
Right.
Eventually, I think you need to get to, what do you think about this, creatively, spiritually?
Yeah, I that's huge, because I think eventually if you're following somebody else, you end up following their standards also.
Mhm.
And then you imprison yourself with, something that's really not meant for you.
Yeah. And how often do we get to 80% of the way there? That's kind of it's a deep question, but how many people are very satisfied with their health and their fitness? Well, actually, recent studies say about 26% of men and 28% of women say they're very satisfied with their health and their fitness and their strength. So that's a big percentage that's not fully satisfied from there. And I think oftentimes we say, oh, is good enough? It's like, maybe there's some areas of stuff on a day-to-day practice that maybe fits that. But when you're talking about getting everything out of life and everything out of your practices, why not shoot for the highest of high and smiling and having the most grand life, possible? I think oftentimes we don't think that's attainable from
Right.
there. And I personally think it is. But it's going to take a little bit different approach than a lot of us are talking about.
You mentioned limiting beliefs a few moments ago. Are there any common limiting beliefs that you have found from people?
So I forget the percentages of it, but every time somebody aims for a goal and fails at it, that self-efficacy drops a little bit more down, a little bit at a time. It's kind of like, it's a weird analogy, but I think it fits. It's kind of like the prescription drug industry, where it's like, if you fill up a antidepressant like one more time over 30 days, you're a high percentage likely to stay more addicted to it. And if you fill it up twice, it's even more so. It's like 90% from there. So it's like, it's a slippery slope of getting into that side. I think it's the same thing with our own beliefs of what we feel we can accomplish. The more times you try and you fail at stuff, specifically if you feel like you did your best, then that just belief in your own self, I think, could be a really challenging thing. I had actually a call with the client just a few weeks ago about this, and I just point blankly asked her, I'm like, do you believe you can get to your goals? Like 100%. And she kind of thought, she's like, no, I don't. I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay. I'm like, why not? Let's start diving. And we started diving into it, and it starts getting into past beliefs. Schedules have gone awry when it was in like that all or nothing mentality of, oh, I need to follow this very set program, and if anything delineates off of that, then I failed the program. And then they're always in a mindset, she's been trying for a while and then failing, and that could be a really challenging thing for people. So I think that self-efficacy, like that belief in actually knowing that you can achieve it, is a challenging thing for a lot of people from there.
It is. You on your website mentioned that, and I like this, and playing on that self-belief.
Mhm.
I'm a fan of, especially as I'm getting older. uh, I often like in the Bible. I'm really curious about how Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's inside of you.
Mhm.
Like what you're looking for, what you want is in you.
Yeah.
And on your website, this is why I really think we resonate well together, is you have everything you need for your own personal strength, health, and happiness. It's inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. You've been an inspiration to me a while with some of our talks because I've, pondered on that. And, it's, I think specifically in our time now, yeah, I think there's some human psychology, behind it, but specifically in the times that we're in now where information's so accessible to us, we have social media at our fingertips, and it's so easy to compare ourselves with other people who are on different levels of the journey and think, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. Like, why am I not at that, moment? And it's so easy to talk about and think about everything that we're lacking and not realize all the things that we already have inside of us. It's like actually being grateful for, your body being able to move. I thought of that. Somebody asked me the other day, like, why is movement so important to you? Because I use that word a lot. And I'm like, shit. I'm like, why is movement important to me? I'm like, and I was kind of thinking about it as I was doing some training. And I'm like, movement's a gift. Like, it's a gift that we have been given, by a higher purpose. Like, we're giving a body, we have the ability to move our body and make it stronger. The stronger we get in our body, the more energy that we can actually utilize to do other things. Like, that's not just, I think, by happenstance. That's an actual gift that we can go into. And to waste that gift or to not, deem that as important, I think is, denying the gift that you have, and I
Right.
think that's, for lack of a better term, I think that's like sinful, that's something that, it's been given to us to have, and realize that to push your body and to actually challenge it and to grow it stronger, everything's already within you. It's like what somebody else could do might be different than what you could do, but they're also on a different journey that you don't know what's going on in their mind and the challenges that they're facing or the things that they've had to overcome. You can maybe learn something from them, but you kind of meet yourself where you're at. And I'm just a huge proponent, just from my own personal experience, of believing in the timing of life. I've had too many things that have happened in my life, and speaking up to God and speaking up to and having prayer of being like, I need answers to it, and having them brought to me at that moment, that I can't deny that things happen for a very specific reason. You're with your body, you're with your faults, you're with your challenges, you're with the strength that you have, you're with the weaknesses, if there are some. Everything is supposed to be where it is at the moment. So you're actually perfectly exactly where you're supposed to be. So
Mm.
that's where it kind of comes back to everything that you need already is where you need to be today. Now, I guess the caveat on that, Tim, would be where you are today maybe not be sufficient 6 months from now. Like, you need to continuously progress and go forward. And, that's kind of like doing your best. It's like, well, what your best is today might be different 6 months down the road or a year down the road. But
Especially if you've laid the foundation for that best along the way.
exactly. Yeah. And, but I think what you can do today and the effort that you put in and the focus and creating the best environment for you to succeed, that's something always within our grasp. It might be different every day, but how I start my day and end my day is with intentions and reflections, where it's like, all right, what are my intentions for the day to give my best self? And at the end of the day, how did I do? It's like, and some days are right on point. Other days are more lacking, and there's could be some reasons behind it that you can look objectively. But if you get into a practice like that, then I think you're always, you do realize that everything you need is already within you. You just have to unlock it. You just have to kind of figure out how to unveil it on a day by day basis.
And that's where you come in, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because one more question about your website.
Mhm.
There's a lot of gold there. So
Thank you.
you call yourself an intuitive practitioner.
Mm.
So is that another way of saying you're a people whisperer? that you help people discover their strength that is
Yeah.
within them, or like, what does that mean? Intuitive practitioner.
I wish, intuitive training is something that I have had an interesting relationship with over the past couple years. Quick story when I started my own business with Breakthrough Secrets, August of 2021. So coming up on a couple years now, and anybody who started a new business, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do. And I was in a just kind of a zone of, all right, I know mentally I'm going to have to put a lot of my focus into what I'm doing. Like I was opening up things. I was taking on different roles that I really never did before in the past. I've been in this business for a long time. So I know the training side of it, like the coaching side, but like really what I wanted to envision, what I wanted to create with my podcast, with the coaching program, with courses and stuff like that, it was going to take a lot of energy there. So to follow a very like rigid and structured physical training plan at the time was not aligning with me. So when I was working with my coach, I've worked with Brett Jones for many years now. He's a great guy. And I kind of went into every day just based on how I feel, doing like, all right, I'm going to train every day, like with the intent of what can I do? And I did some different programs with snatching, iron cardio, those types of things. Some days it was 10 minutes, some days it was 15 minutes, some days it was a half hour. Some days I really pushed it, some days I, pulled it back. But a lot of it had to do with some of the stuff that I learned from guys like Adam Glass and Frankie Ferris, who wrote the book, The Biofeedback Solution, about what your body's telling you, to do. So you're going to your workouts with a question rather than an answer. And I started following that for like a 6-month period of time. And I trained every day for 6 months, like never missed a day, and never felt like I was, overloading my body, never felt like I was under, like I was increasing my strength. I stayed lean, I stayed energetic. And it kind of gave me more energy to put into all of the other things that were really near and dear to me in my life. And I started to really kind of get into the intuitive side of training, being like, oh, this is the next avenue that you need to get into if you want to keep mastering strength. So that was kind of my personal intuition, but I made a mistake with that, Tim, where I thought that this was something that everybody needs to jump into right away. And like, okay, you need to get into the intuitive side of training. When I think a lot of people, they're different, their different journeys wherever they are, especially at a beginning phase of doing something. You need to build the discipline. You need to build the consistency up first. You need to kind of get through that beginner level of kind of building a skill of strength. But then eventually, I think you get to that point, kind of like we talked about a little earlier, about you need to find that individual approach. And I've referenced a book that impacted me a lot by Robert Greene called Mastery, where he kind of lays out the 3 different phases of mastery, which is the apprenticeship phase, then the creative active, and then mastery. And the apprenticeship phase he talks about and kind of uses the term like, that's the time to shut up and learn, like don't question things so much, just go in and just do it, kind of get your reps in. Like sometimes you just need to do that. But eventually then you get to a point where the apprentice leaves the master. Like you need to go on and kind of create your own approach, kind of take all the lessons you learned and then go into more of the intuitive side of it. And then eventually you get to that level of mastery, which is that sharpening the saw of everything. And he gives some really interesting examples in that book of people we know, like Mozart. Mozart wrote most of the music that we know of Mozart. He wrote in like a month time frame, like all of it, because he had all this stuff in his head, and he finally, changed phases from the apprenticeship, and he left his master who kind of taught him all this stuff, and he stayed in Vienna, and he wrote all this stuff, and he was ready for it at that time because he had it all in his mind. So that's kind of the intuitive training approach that, I follow. I think once you get to that level of getting past that beginner phase, like I kind of call it the advanced beginner or intermediate phase, which I think is a demographic in our culture that we don't talk about a lot in fitness and health, because so much stuff is leaned towards the person who's not doing anything. Like 6 weeks, 12-week transformation,
Right.
going from, couch to 5K. Like if you go from doing absolutely nothing to doing anything, that's when you see the biggest changes right away. So it's an easy market to market to. It's an easy demographic. But so many people after that, what happens? Those newbie gains go away. And then all of a sudden, what you were doing before, you don't see the same level of, change in your body. So you think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. And you jump to another program, or you jump to another program, and you get the squirrels, and you kind of go from there. When I think that might be a point where, okay, maybe it's not about the program from there. Maybe we need to look at different things. That's when the mindset work comes in. I think spirituality comes into that. Like, it's different levels of strength in that time. And that's where I think looking at the strength more of like a mastery level versus just following another program. Because eventually what happens then after 12 weeks, then you just jump to another 12-week program, and there's a start date and an end date. And then, okay, what do you do next? You go to the next one, and it's another start date and end date. And you're just kind of recycling the same thing over and over again.
And that will one day get exhausting.
Yeah, then you're following another person's ideals. You're following following somebody else's thoughts of what you should do next, without actually looking internally of being like, okay, maybe you're not doing anything wrong. Maybe it's not the program. Maybe it's your approach. Maybe you've just graduated past that level where you need to stay simple and consistent in this practice and look at other things. That's why I remember I talked with my friend Hector Gutierrez, who talked about deadlifting, and he got to a point where he just started deadlifting every day because he was trying to master the movement and the technique of it. And it kind of takes it from, all right, this is my workout, to, all right, now this is what I'm trying to master. This is what I'm trying to practice. And I think there's more fulfillment in that. I've seen it personally myself, and a lot of the clients who I've worked with for years now have had that same approach. And it's a different conversation that we have about their training programs. It's little adjustments here and there, but they're living their best life. Their training is just adding into the other things that they really want to do in their life.
When you started explaining all this, I was thinking it was like you were talking about going from the discipline of strength training into the art of strength training.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, really though, you're using strength training to actually go into the art of self-discovery, which is, that's powerful.
And self-discovery is, it's an interesting thing, because it sounds good. It kind of gives you a good feel, like I'm discovering myself, right? It's kind of like when people talk about, I'm a spiritual person, like there's a feeling that comes from that. But actually diving deep into yourself about like where your faith is, and like how strong is your faith, how are you acting on it, and actually looking at those things objectively, it's a scary thing,
It is scary.
And you can get, yeah. And you might not find answers right away, kind of, again, going back to the 6-week and the 12-week kind of transformation programs that we see at every boot camp around. And there's nothing wrong with those programs. I have a 12-week program that I do of kind of indoctrinating people into this, type of program. I think there sometimes is good to have that time frame to commit and get yourself going. But again, it's like, okay, it's easy to put our mindset around, I'm going to do something for 6 weeks. Like, it's a lot harder thing to be like, oh, I'm going to practice this until I master this and I really learn about myself. Like, why do I keep self-sabotaging myself 6 weeks down the line? Or why do I keep, why am I good with my nutrition program for 5 days, and then I get to the weekend and it's, I'm going out with my friends and I'm indulging again. It's like, there could be a lot of things in there. It could be self-reward that's going on. It could be a governor where you don't fully believe that you're that person that's going to get to that goal. So you're naturally self-sabotaging yourself. Like, we have a governor in our body that once we get too hot and things are going really well, we have a way of cooling ourselves down in it.
Yeah, I think Gay Hendricks has a book called The Big Leap, and he calls that the lid, where people just naturally put a lid on themselves and it's weird. It's like a self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. Things are going good. Then bam, they somehow put a lid on it because it's too good to be true, or it's not, I don't know. I'm not good enough. Right? The fear of not being who you think you are, want to be, or all whatever just starts coming in.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing that I always think is interesting. We do a check-in at a week, and they're in a weight loss journey. Oh, I lost 2 pounds. Yeah, but yeah, I could do better. And so, like, we dilute the things down that we're working on because we're either not at that goal yet that we have. We think we have a long way to go. So we don't want to allow ourselves to celebrate the small
Very
victories.
hesitant to celebrate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also it could just mean like, oh, like I'm not used to winning. Like I'm used to this, like always struggling. And we can kind of get almost comfortable in our own mindset of always pursuing something, like to actually get to a goal that we want to accomplish. That's the fear of success. And I think that's something that's just as powerful and just as ingrained in so many people as the fear of failure. There's a million motivational quotes and talks about the fear of failure, and like getting over that. The fear of massive success is another thing. And I know that because that's something that I have personally worked on myself, of allowing myself to fully embrace everything that I want to do, because then all of a sudden, oh my God, you're fully out there. You're talking about things that you have not talked about with a lot of people. Yeah, maybe like your friends and family know it, but now all of a sudden, thousands of people are listening to you, talk about, oh my God, like this is, you're stepping onto a stage and being a little bit more open, and a lot of people, we have that, we see ourselves in a specific identity, and we get comfortable in hiding behind that mask.
Yep.
Then so if you have that and you don't approach that, or you don't look at a way to recover that, I talk about recovery and discovery, and we are so focused all the time on discovering what we can do. We have a new program, we're adding more things into our day. What can I add in to discover my full capability? But without recovering and recognizing the things that have been holding us back, the weight in our backpack that we're holding, then it doesn't matter how strong we are, that weight is staying in our backpack and we're not letting it go. And oftentimes the biggest strength gain that we can have is letting go of that baggage and that BS that we're holding on to. And then all of a sudden, it's a weight lifted off the shoulders. It's like, I always think it's interesting when you talk about something very emotional, like something that's been on your mind, and you actually finally let it go. And we say, oh my God, it feels like a weight's been lifting off my shoulders. Yeah.
It
And
releases you.
it literally does. Your posture changes, like everything about you. You breathe a little bit deeper. Like it changes your whole nervous system when you do that. Like it carries weight. And how many of us are just carrying that excess weight of that stress or those self-limiting beliefs that we sometimes don't even want to talk about or want to get into because it's a painful thing to go over. But if you do, and you put a practice in for that, just as much as you do with your press reset or your kettlebell snatches or whatever it is, if you have a practice for that as well, then okay, now you're opening up all different aspects of your strength.
Right on. This is awesome. Not to keep you too much longer, but I want to ask you some questions. I think I may know the answers, but I'm absolutely sure I also probably don't. What is your favorite exercise tool of choice?
The tool external is the kettlebell. That's the easiest answer there.
I like how you said external tool. That's good.
Exactly. It's the external tool. Yeah. Actually, my favorite exercise though is the pull-up. I love pull-ups.
Right on.
Absolutely love pull-ups.
Awesome. All right. So along with pull-ups and the kettlebell or any other modality, what are your favorite movements? I know pull-ups.
The kettlebell snatch is my favorite movement because there's just something like badass to it, honestly. It's like it just feels good. There's such a benefit to it on a strength and conditioning side. I mean, there's so many benefits of it, of body composition, of strength, all that stuff. But as far as just a specific movement to master, like that one just feels aligned with me. All the 6 different, principles of RKC1 and SFG1 and stuff like that, I think they're all great. I think there's merit to all of them. But you leave me alone and I'm like, what do I want to do today? And I could pick like my favorite ice cream flavor on there. I'm doing probably 5 snatches on the minute for 20, 30 minutes. And I'm just really dialing in and just focusing on my technique each one and depicting myself because one, I think I'm getting a good workout. It's benefiting me towards my strength goals, but two, it also really allows me to focus in on my technique and my practice. So it kind of, it checks a few different boxes at once.
Awesome. So pull-ups and snatch, anything else?
Um, this is so interesting. I've had such a hate relationship with squats for so long. But I started actually just getting into some high bar squat and just kind of working on it for a bit. And because I had a weird thing is when I was 14, I had a pin inserted into my hip. My femur slipped out of the growth plate. And the doctor at that time told me like the one thing not to do is squat. And I was like, so I was just in my brain, like I never worked on my squat. So I did so much posterior chain work. Like my deadlift is great. It always has improved, but my squat is so embarrassingly weak that it's like, I never really worked on it much, but actually like getting into that type of work has been, and a little bit of some barbell squat feels really good. But other than that, like one of the most favorite things to do is find a hill and just walk up and down or run up and down the hill.
And I told you, like we're twins. Like
Yeah.
I love sprinting up some
Yeah.
hills.
Put a rucksack on me and give me a hill and just walking up and down that and just going for a nice walk with that. Like that's my, that's my meditation, I guess, in many ways. Like I've done meditation practices before and stuff like that, but sitting quietly in a really comfortable room and stuff like that, talking about how I'm going to challenge myself and like improve myself, it doesn't sit so well with me just personally. That's not a suggestion to everybody. Yeah, like going for a walk and, with no music, just kind of like breathing slowly through my nose and just kind of with maybe a rucksack on and just asking some questions, just getting a little bit deeper, connection with, with God and stuff like that. Like that's a pleasant thing I enjoy doing. I look forward to that on a daily basis.
And strength just comes from it. Like that's
It's amazing.
weird, but yeah, it's amazing strength training is what that is.
It really, like a 30-40 minute walk with like a rucksack with 50 pounds in it. Like after that I'm like, okay, like I feel like I just like hoe to hoe field.
Yeah.
It's like it's manual labor.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Do you like peanut butter?
Love peanut butter. Love peanut butter. Teddy's.
Creamy.
Teddy's smooth.
Teddy's.
Teddy's
All
creamy.
right, you went right for it. Okay.
Yeah. Teddy's creamy.
So in North Carolina, I've just now started seeing that on the shelves.
It's
and
the best.
We were late adopters to Teddy's.
Teddy's smooth. Yeah.
It is pretty good. It is.
It's amazing.
Very good.
It is amazing.
Can anyone tap into their inner strength and happiness and everything they needs inside of them? Is it accessible to anyone? Like I know it's there, but what I know doesn't matter.
Yes. So the short answer I would say on that is yes, absolutely. I mean, we're all made the same way. We've all been given the same thing. There's different challenges, obviously different obstacles. Everybody's going through different things. They have a different journey that they have to do in their life. But I believe everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a deep truth of why they're here, and to live their full life and to live their full strength. I believe it's accessible to everybody. How you get that and the practices and the time frame that it's going to take to do that, I think is going to be different. But I think universally, if you combine practices that work on your mindset with practices that work on your physical body and you put those together, you're going to get there a lot faster.
Right on. Michael, if someone wants to get in touch with you, train with you, work with you, learn from you, where's the best place to go?
My social medias is the best. You could check me out on Facebook's just my name, Michael Kurkowski. I have a private Facebook group, which is called The Strength Connection. That's where I go a lot deeper into a lot of insights, a lot of work that I'm doing specifically with programs or the podcast. And then Instagram, you can check me out. It's Mike_strength_connection. And in my link tree right there, if you want to jam, you want to, book a call with me, you can just go right in there, book a time. No joke. I tell everybody, like, my goal is just to talk about this with you. If I can provide you with good practices in there and give you some insights into what I've done, what I've seen people do, and maybe help steer you in the right direction, then just leave it with a good positive vibe from there. If you want to go deeper in it, then we can certainly chat about that as well.
I'm sure you know this, but did you know that there is also an actor named Michael Kurkowski who has the website michaelkurkowski.net?
Is he?
That's not you, by the way. You don't know that?
No, I don't. This is such a weird way to kind of close out a conversation, but when I Googled my name once, maybe like a couple years ago, there's a Michael Kurkowski from Minnesota that was at the time currently on trial for murder. So I told you, I am not that guy.
Not me. Okay? Not me.
That is not me. There's a few of us out there. No, my website that you can go and check me out, that we went over quite a bit today, is mystrengthconnection.com. That's where you can go in. And if you're interested in the intuitive practice of this, if you enjoy kettlebell training and stuff, I have a free ebook on there, which is called the 1-Day Strength Challenge. This is kind of an introduction into intuitive training 101. It's how to take a specific intuitive training practice and incorporate it 1 day a week with anything else that you're doing. So if you're following a specific program, then you can add this 1 day in, and it's going to only impact your training even better. You can do it as a standalone program, or you can do it as an add-in. But this was something I put together as far as, if you're interested in this, if you kind of gone past that beginner phase and you want to go more into the creative side and the intuitive side of training, then this ebook is fantastic. Got a lot of really good feedback from it.
If you've been training for longer than 5 years, longer than 10 years, do yourself a favor, go to his website and get that ebook. Then learn how to be intuitive and hopefully discover the art of your own self-discovery. Michael, this has been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Now get outside and play.